Hi there, welcome to Rick's Recipes. If you're not subscribed, please do. I'm doing good stuff here, I reckon. A lot of the stuff I do is based around a Weight Watchers program that I'm following, and the idea is to make food that is generally low in carbohydrate, low in fat, and generally nutritious and good for you, high in fibre, that kind of thing. Me personally, I don't really weigh anything, I don't really measure anything, and I don't stick to specific ingredients. And so what I'm going to make today is stuff that I've got lying around. Now, the reason I'm doing this today is because I'm going to go away tomorrow night, going to go and see my eldest daughter at university. And the temptation normally would be just to meet up and then go to the Wetherspoons and have something bad to eat that would ruin my Weight Watcher plan completely. So I thought what I'd do is I'd make a big vegan chilli with lots of vegetables in it, and I'd take it with me in the car, in a cool box maybe. And when I meet Maddie, we'll go to her flat. She lives with 6 guys and 1 girl, I think, and and we're going to have dinner together, which I thought would be really nice. And they can have a go of my vegan chili and see what they think. And if they ask me how I made it, I can show them this video. I think that would be quite a cool thing to do. So I'm going to use all the stuff that I need to use up anyway. So I've got like half a red pepper that I'd line around. I've got a green pepper, courgette there that I've had a bit of already. Got some garlic, and I've got a couple of big onions there. I've got a butternut squash that I was going to use for something else, but I think I'll put it in the chili. I've got a bit of celery that's looking slightly sorry for itself, but we'll use that anyway. And I did actually get some mushrooms. They're actually sliced mushrooms from Aldi, but you can use any old mushrooms you've got. And I've got some chilies. Now, a lot of the lads apparently, they don't like things too spicy. I asked my daughter how spicy. She said medium. I've got some red kidney beans, obviously. I've got some black pepper, some salt, a bit of cumin. I've got some tomato puree, probably optional really. I've got some passata in the fridge as well that needs using up. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up the butternut squash, and probably, I think I'm going to roast it in the oven because I really like the texture it takes on when you do that. Now, if you want to see me chop up the butternut squash and all that sort of thing, I'll link to another video in the top right hand corner now that you can look at, where I was just making butternut squash as a kind of snack, if you like. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to give that about 40 minutes in the oven. I think I may as well, chop up the courgette and chuck that in near the end and roast that a little bit. And then I may as well do the same with the peppers, hadn't I? Oh, and these cherry tomatoes, by the way, they're okay, but sometimes when they go a bit old and go a bit wrinkly, I tend to use them up by cooking them in things. Don't necessarily need them. All I'm thinking is if I'm away for a couple of days, I might not get around to using them. So so first of all, I'll chop up the butternut squash. What I've done, I've put them on a baking tray, a bit of baking paper, and just cut them up all kind of, normal sort of sizes really. Might sprinkle a bit of salt on them, although probably doesn't need it if you don't want it. And then I normally give them a squirt with some of that, the fry light stuff. Give them a few squirts with that. Okay, and then chuck it in the oven. Now I normally put it on wherever that is pointing downwards, about 180 I think. I'm not actually going to bother preheating the oven and then waiting for it to warm up. I just put it all in. At the very worst, it'll just grill them a little bit more, and I don't mind that. Okay, so that's all the onion chopped up, and then I'll chop the celery as well. And then I'm kind of running out of room on my chopping board, so I should probably start cooking soon, shouldn't I? So let's do that. Now, I'm going to use a tiny bit of olive oil, which in Weight Watcher terms does count as points, but I'm going to use so little, and if you think about it, this is going to be at least 8 portions. There really is going to be virtually no olive oil in the final thing. Now I did leave the skin on the butternut squash. I do that on purpose because I just really like the way it comes out. I think the skin, obviously when it's kind of uncooked, is quite hard and a bit weird looking, but when it's cooked it takes on a really nice texture, and I just really love it, And that's probably one of the reasons why I won't ever use like frozen butternut squash, because you don't get the skin. and I really like the skin. If I was making a soup or something, I'd probably peel it, you know, because you want it to be as smooth as possible. But for this kind of thing, I think it just makes sense to leave the skin on. The peppers, I'm just going to take away all the sort of white bits and obviously the stalk. There's probably a better way to do this, but I don't know. So if I didn't have the butternut squash, I'd probably do everything in one pan, which would make life a lot easier, I must admit. Wouldn't involve the oven. But because I'm roasting the butternut squash anyway, I may as well roast these other vegetables as well. So I don't want to make the bits too small because they'll just burn, won't they? So, you know, I don't know. Something like that kind of size is ideal, I suppose. Okay, that was the oven beeping that it's up to temperature, so I'm going to put it on for, I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes, right? That's 40 minutes, and what we'll do, we'll chuck the other stuff in towards the end. Okay, so the peppers are going to go in a bit later. Yeah, I just washed the courgette a little bit, it felt a little bit muddy. Now, see, if you did this in the kind of pan, it would sort of disappear. And, you know, I'd like some of these vegetables and stuff to, you know, retain some sort of form. So that's why I think if I got the oven on anyway, I might as well just roast these sort of things as well. So what I'll do, I'll keep the chunks of this reasonably big, you know, not go too tiny with them. So maybe sort of that sort of size. I mean, they will disappear a little bit because courgette always does when you cook with it. But it'd be good if it's got some of that kind of like roast courgette kind of taste, which I really love actually. So the rest of it is kind of, it's all the sort of onions and garlic bit, you know, so this celery, I'm just going to take off the leafy bits, although you can probably eat them as well, you know. It's just some people freak out a little bit if they've got like a weird texture they're not used to. If it was myself, I'd eat all the leafy bits, but you know what these student types are like. Anyway, so that's the celery. I'll chop that up in a moment. These onions are quite big, but I always like to go a little bit over the top with onions and you know, make things quite oniony, because I think it never hurts. Okay, so that's all the onion chopped up, and then I'll chop the celery as well, and then I'm kind of running out of room on my chopping board, so I should probably start cooking soon, shouldn't I? So let's do that. I'm going to use a tiny bit of olive oil, which in Weight Watcher terms does count as points, but I'm going to use so little, and if you think about it, this is going to be at least 8 portions. There really is going to be virtually no olive oil in the final thing. So I've got my big saucepan. I'm going to put a tiny bit of olive oil in there. Probably about, I don't know, half a teaspoon, but that'll be okay. Anyway, I'm going to heat that up. Now, when I lived in France, I had a really nice induction hob, but unfortunately here I've just got a standard electric hob, which is really quite dull. I am thinking of changing it, because I really miss my induction hob. They are brilliant. If you've never used one, have a go, because they're fantastic. They're better than gas, I reckon. And I've even got a mate, Colin, who is a proper chef in France, and he actually prefers cooking on induction hobs rather than gas, and he's a proper chef. So let's just see how hot it is. Oh yeah. Okay, so I'll chuck all the onion in. Put my celery in at the same time. Okay, that's all good. Now, what I want to do is I want to create some sort of like meaty substitute, and that's where mushrooms come in handy. So I'm going to slice these up even more. Now, what I'd normally do at home, I'd just put it into the food processor and come out with, like, you know, literally stuff that almost looks like mince, but I know these student types probably won't have such a thing, so I'm just going to slice it up as best as I can. So yeah, just literally just go a bit mad really with the knife. Try not to chop my fingers off at the same time. So I'm sort of like a human food processor, aren't I? This is one of them knives from IKEA. I think it's called Vorda. They're quite cheap, and when you get them, they're really, really sharp. But they soon lose their sharpness. Unlike this Kitchen Devil that I've had for like about 30 years, this still seems pretty sharp. This IKEA one, after a few weeks, isn't as sharp. Still good though. Now I know some people at this point will be putting their chilies in. I'm not going to do that, because if I do that, it kind of always catches in my throat a bit, and if there's anyone else in the house, they start complaining and start coughing. So I tend to put the chilies in a bit later. I also put the garlic in a bit later. I don't know why, I just started doing that, and then it seems to make sense to me. It's looking pretty good, isn't it? Just going to get my wooden spoon and give the onions a quick stir. By the way, if you've got any suggestions or anything you'd like me to do, or anything you think I'm doing wrong, do leave a comment down below, or even just say hello, or say that's rubbish, whatever. Okay, I think we're ready for them now. Meanwhile, I'm going to peel some garlic. Okay, I'll turn the heat down a little bit on this, because the onions are starting to go brown now. And then let's chuck all this in. I do know that one of the guys there tomorrow night is this guy called Dan, who's actually my daughter's boyfriend, new boyfriend, and he's really into mushrooms, all sorts of weird ones. You know, he goes foraging and all that. Anyway, let's see if he notices what the main non-meaty component is. Okay, it's looking good so far. I'm going to leave that cooking for a bit. Meanwhile, I did notice that the oven has now been on for 20 minutes, so I'm going to put the rest of the stuff in. See, they're looking lovely. Maybe I'll give it an extra squirt with the fry light. There you go. Alright, so it's got about another 20 minutes to go with this lot. So let's go back to the garlic and the chilies. I've actually got loads of garlic there, but I don't care because I love garlic. Now, I did have a garlic crusher at one point, but I don't like cleaning them. So what I tend to do is cut the garlic in half, so you've got like a flat side. And then I just get the knife and just do that with it. If you think this is an excessive amount of garlic, then you don't use as much. You know, you don't have to, but I do. I love it. Okay, so that's the garlic. Now, chilies. Now, look, I've got 4 here. These big ones, I mean, you can bite one. And they're not that hot. So I'm not sure how many to use. They really feel quite mild. I'm going to use them all. Oddly enough, the hottest part of a chilli is actually not the seeds, not the red bit, it's actually the bit in between, apparently. Or so I've been told. Okay, well that's all my chopping done, I think. Okay, this is looking good. I mean, it does smell quite mushroomy at the moment. But what we'll do, we'll put a bit of cumin in it to give it that kind of smoky sort of taste, you know. Okay, I think I'm ready for me garlic, and my chilies. Stick all the seeds in as well. Okay, so 11 minutes to go. I'm going to put them cherry tomatoes in the oven. Yeah, I might end up giving the oven a little bit longer because it wasn't looking quite like I wanted to. Yeah, let's just keep this cooking for a bit. Even though I used very little olive oil in the first place, it was just to start the onions cooking and stop them sticking to the pan really. But once they're going and you put the mushrooms in, the mushrooms kind of release a bit of moisture, if you like. And at that point it's not going to stick to the pan. Right, so it's starting to take that kind of sort of mushy sort of texture on, which is going to convince everyone it's a real chilli. Now at this point in time I like to add a bit of cumin. Now how much? I don't know, I tend to do that much, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, it's probably about a teaspoon, a big teaspoon maybe. Okay, now the sort of moisture in the pan is starting to dry out a little bit, so I think this is when I'm going to start adding the tomatoey stuff. Now I've usually got some of this stuff lying around in the fridge. It's always a good way to use it up. But at the same time you could put in tinned tomatoes. It doesn't really matter really, as long as you've got some sort of juiciness to it. Actually I just found a second one of those open in the fridge. Might add that as well. Yeah, for some reason it was two open in the fridge, but I'll stick it all in. Okay, right, that's starting to look like a chilli. I'm going to add a bit of black pepper in there as well. Actually, I think I might chuck a tin of tomatoes in there as well, you know. Yeah, let's do that. So I just got some chopped tomatoes. Now I'm actually going to chuck in a vegetable stock cube. I'd kind of rather do that than putting a load of salt in. I quite like the taste they give. So I might put 2 in. Then I'm going to get the kidney beans and drain the water off them. Okay, so drain the water off those. In they go. Just wait for the veg to be done in the oven. Okay, so I actually gave the veg in the oven an extra kind of like 5 minutes or so. So it's probably had, the butternut squash has probably had about 45 minutes altogether. So let's have a look at it. Looks brilliant. Look at that. Right, I'm going to chuck that in that pan now. Now I'm going to see if I can pick it all up and put it in the pan. Ooh, scary. There's probably a neater way to do that. But you see the bits like that? Just gorgeous. And the final thing I'll do, which is probably optional, is going to put a bit of tomato puree in, just to make it a bit sort of richer, you know. I'm going to leave that cooking for about 15 minutes, just sort of simmering, you know, and I'll come back. Okay, so let's have a look. Well, it looks nice and saucy. Let's try a few bits, get a bit of courgette out, that's a bit of celery, okay, and a bit of butternut squash. Yeah, this is great, it's all got like nice textures to it, so the amount of heat is about right. I think I've done okay there. So what I might do, I might just leave this simmering for a little bit longer and then leave it overnight. I let all the tastes infuse together, and then I'll put it in some little plastic pots like that and put them inside a cool box, put it in the car and drive to Wales. Now because it's got the butternut squash in here, I think there's adequate kind of carbohydrate, and butternut squash with Weight Watchers is 0 points. The chilli itself is all 0 points. I mean, there's a tiny bit of olive oil, but like I said, when it's over so many portions, it's pretty much 0. So this is a kind of guilt-free, tasty meal. What I need to do is do a follow-up video with the reaction from Maddie's friends in her flat. And I think that would be quite a good thing. So, for that reason, can you make sure you're subscribed? Make sure you've got the notifications set on all. Do leave a nice comment down below. And above all, thanks very much to my coach, Kathy Jones, and all the lovely Weight Watcher people who go to the Toby Carvery every Tuesday morning in Exeter. All right, Rick out. Thanks a lot. Keep watching.